Hey y'all, in this video we're going to get back into Aspire and get into doing a little more 3D modeling. The inspiration for this video came from my quest to 3D model a 5-pointed star to carve a barn star for some yard art out in my wife's flower garden. I am modeling this in Aspire version 10.019. This is an Aspire only project. It does not work in VCarve Desktop or VCarve Pro. So let's go ahead and get into the project. I'm going to create a new file, and this is going to be a rather big piece. It's a single-sided job. The width is going to be 24 inches in X. The height is going to be 24 inches in Y. And the thickness of my material is going to be 1.5 inches. I'm going to set my Z0 at the material surface. For layout purposes, my XY datum position is going to be in the center. And I'm going to boost my modeling resolution up to very high. Then we'll click OK. As I said, the inspiration from this came from my quest to 3D model a 5-pointed star. And I'm going to show you what I was doing, then show you the correct way to do this. And that is come up here under Create Vectors and click on Draw a Star. I want a 5-pointed star. I want the center point of that star on my X0, Y0. I want my outer radius, I'm going with 10 inches. Now that is from the center of the star to the top point. And my inner radius percentage, I'm going for 38.5. I'll explain what that means in just 1 minute as soon as we get a star drawn out here. I'm going to go ahead and click Create. The inner radius percentage is the distance from these inside points to the center of the star. The higher the number, the further out these will go. The lower the number, the further in they come. Now, I was looking for something with as close to a horizontal line here on this arm of the star as I could get. So I found 38.5% to be the happy medium. It's not 100% straight, but it works. So I'm going to go ahead and close this, and this gives me my star. Now, to convert this to 3D, I'll need to go ahead and select it, come over here into the Modeling tab. I'm going to come up here into my modeling tools and go to the first icon, Create Shape from a Vector Outline. And I'm going to click that icon. To get this star, what I'm looking for is I'm looking for a straight ridge up here, up the center of the point, and meeting in the middle on all of these long points here. So it's an angular shape. So I'm going to choose an angular shape profile. And for an angle, I'm going to start with something along the lines of, let's go with 60, a 60-degree angle here, and see what we get. Come over here into the 3D view so we can see what's going on. And we have the angular profile here. But if we look at it closer, we can see, zoom in a little bit here, these ridges here are not straight. They curve down right here. That's not the sharp angle I'm looking for. If we back out here, we can also see that from this inside point right here up to the center, that's kind of a curve. This is kind of dished. And if we look, there's a couple of puckers right here that just look unnatural. That's not what I'm after. And adjusting the angle Just, it'll make it a little bit steeper and a little bit taller, but it doesn't really help any. Even if I put it on no limit for final height, all we're doing is we're bringing up the height in the center, but we've still got this curved line here, and that pucker is even more pronounced. So bring it back down to something like that, and apply it, let it modify here. It still really doesn't do anything. That's not what I wanted at all. I'll go ahead and reset my component here and get rid of all of that. That was when I remembered a technique using a 2-rail sweep. So that's what I'm going to do to try to get my nice sharp angular star. Now, what I should have done to begin with was I'm going to go ahead and center my star here in the middle. Close that. I'm also going to go ahead and bring it out a little bit, make it a little bit larger. I want a nice big star here. I'll select it again. What I'm going to use is a 2-rail sweep function. Obviously, to do a 2-rail sweep, I need 2 drive wheels. So I'm going to go ahead with this big star selected. I'm going to hold down Control and tap the letter C to copy. Then, still holding down Control, I'm going to tap the letter V to paste. That copied and pasted a star right over the top of this one and put it into move and transform mode. Then, just for me, to make it easier for me to see it, I'm going to hold down Shift, click on the white box out here on the corner, and I'm going to make it a little bit smaller. So I've got my original star out here. This is the copy. Now I want to come over here under Transform Objects to select Object Size. And I'm going to take my widest measurement here, which happens to be the width, not the height. And I'm going to make this very tiny. I'm going to change the width in X to 0.0625, 1/16 of an inch. I'm going to click Apply and Close. So now I have this tiny star right here in the middle. Now, I want to check on something before I go any further. With this little bitty star here in the center selected, I'm going to tap N for node editing, and I'm going to take note of where my start point is and which direction it's being drawn in. So it's starting here, and the vector is being drawn in this direction, counterclockwise. So I can click off to deselect it. I'm going to zoom back out, and I'm going to select this star. And I see that the start point is in the same corner. It should be, because this is a copy of this one, and it's being drawn in the same direction. That's important for our 2-rail sweep. They need to be going in the same direction, and the start point needs to be the same area. So with that taken care of, I can come out of node editing. To do a 2-rail sweep, what we'll need to do is have a profile for Aspire to sweep between these 2 drive rails. So I'm going to come over here into my Drawing tab. I'm going to draw a rectangle. And I want this star to have some nice thick projection. I want to try to get close to that 1.5 inch thick. So I'm going to draw a rectangle that is 1.4 tall and 2.8 wide. I'll come out here and I'll just click, and that sets my rectangle right there. I'll close that. Now with this rectangle selected, I'll tap the letter N to go into node editing. And I want to delete this span here, because we need one open vector for our profile that we're going to drive along these rails. And I want it to be angular. So I'm going to delete this point right here, and there is the profile I'm going to drive along these rails. I'll tap the letter N to come out of node editing and click off to deselect. Now I want to tile my 2D view and my 3D view so I don't have to keep bouncing back and forth between them. What I'm going to do is go back into my modeling tab. I'm going to select the outside rail, hold down Shift, select my star. Then I'm going to come up to my second icon up here under Modeling Tools to create a shape by sweeping between two vectors. I'll click on that icon. I have my little star selected. I have my large star selected. Those are my drive wheels. I'll click Use Selection. And we see here we have the start point on this corner, and it's being drawn counterclockwise. I'll zoom in here to double check, and sure enough, my start point is right here, and it's being drawn counterclockwise. Zoom back out. Now we want to select the vector that we're going to drive. That will be this one right here. I want to make sure I have a checkbox here. Sweep between spans. I want a check mark there. And here's the secret. Fill the center of the inner closed vector rails, meaning it's going to project up this profile all the way into the center of this star right here. So I won't have a flat spot or a blank spot here. So zoom back out. I'm not going to scale to an exact height just to see what this looks like. My combine mode is in the additive, and I'm going to name it Barn Star. I'm going to click on my start point to set where I want it to start, and we'll click Apply. We look over here. I'm going to maximize my 3D view, and that's the star that I'm after. We zoom in here. We can see it comes to a nice point right in the center. I have these sharp angles right here that I was looking for. There's no funny looking puckers or anything. And these angles here are nice and sharp and straight. And there is my 5-pointed barn star. I'll go ahead and close that. We can look in my component tree, and there is my barn star right there. I'm ready now to go ahead and calculate toolpaths. I'll come over into the Toolpaths tab, and I will select that vector that we drew to outline our star, and I'll select the star. I'm going to do a 3D roughing toolpath. The thickness of my material is 1.5 inches. Now is when I change my XY datum to the bottom left corner, because that's where I set my X, Y, and Z0 outside on the CNC machine. I'm going to set my Z0 to the material surface. And for this model, I'm going to drag down to the bottom. I have a gap of 0.1 because my model is 1.4 tall and my material is 1.5 thick. I want to machine away that material there. I will go ahead and click OK. And now we can get into the rough machining toolpath. I'm going to use a 1/2-inch end mill to remove the bulk of this material because it's so big. I am going to machine to the selected vector, and I'm going to put in a boundary offset of 0.625, meaning it's going to carve past this vector 5/8 of an inch. I'm going to leave a machining allowance of 40 thousandths for the finishing bit to come along and clean up. And that will do. I'm going to call it 3D roughing. That'll do. We'll calculate that toolpath. Then I will preview it. And there is our 3D roughing toolpath. Go back to a straight Z view. I'll close that. Go back into my 2D view. With everything still selected, I'll come along and I'll do a 3D finishing toolpath. I'm going to use a 1/4 inch ball nose for this. It's a large model, so I don't need a lot of detail. I'm going to machine to the selected vector, and for the boundary offset, I want to carve beyond the diameter of the bit. So I'm going to go 0.375, 3/8 of an inch. That's going to clear out the material out in this direction. And we'll go ahead and call this 3D finish. We'll calculate that toolpath. Then we'll go ahead and we'll preview that toolpath. Okay, with our 3D finishing toolpath complete, I'm going to come in down here, zoom in a little bit, and I'm going to put my cursor down here. And I can see almost through this area right here. The ball nose may or may not go all the way through the material when it carves this out. The reason I had my 1/2 inch bit carve all this material away here is because I'm going to take this reading right here. It's negative 1.2. I need to remember that number, because when we go to use our profile cutout, I'm going to have it start right here. Rather than cutting air from the material surface, I want it to start cutting about right here and maybe make a pass in the air. I don't know. It's just going to depend. It may cut all the way through. I may not need to do this profile toolpath, but I'm going to calculate one in case I need it. I need to remember negative 1.2, and I'm getting that number by looking at my readouts right down here. When I put my cursor right there, I can see it's negative 1.2. So I'll go back to a straight Z view, close this, go back to my 2D view, click off to deselect. Now I'm just going to select this vector outside here. I'm going to do a profile toolpath. My start depth is going to be negative 1.2. My cut depth is going to be 0.3. That's as deep as that's going to cut. For my tool, I'm going to use a 1/4 inch end mill. I'm going to machine to the outside of the vectors. And I'm just going to call this profile cutout. We'll calculate. And we see here we've only got a couple of 3 passes to go. We'll preview that toolpath. And there we go. Double click to get rid of the waste. And there is my barn star, ready to be sanded, painted, and hung up outside. So I hope that helped you to figure out how to make a nice, sharp, angular star, rather than that puffy excuse for a star. Don't forget, this afternoon at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern, I'll be holding a live Q&A session where we can discuss the 2-rail sweep or anything else I've covered in this video. That's this afternoon at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern, right here on my YouTube channel. and I'll put a link to that live Q&A session down in the description box of this video. Now, these live Q&A sessions are a good reason to go ahead and subscribe to my channel. And when you hit that subscribe button, click that bell button right next to it. Then select all notifications. That way you'll be notified every time I post a video and every time I go live for another Q&A session. So, I hope you got something out of this video, and I hope to see you this afternoon. And, as always, whether you subscribe to my channel or not, I'd like to thank you very much for taking the time to watch, and y'all take care.